Hi everyone, my name is Karis and welcome back to Lit-erally Travelling, a series in which I read my way around the world, beginning with reading books from the 4 countries that I was meant to travel to last year. In today's video, I'm going to be reading a book from Norway, namely The Orange Girl by Jostein Gaarder. If you'd like to see episode 1 of this series where I read a book from Slovakia, I will leave a link to that video in the description and also in the card so you can go over and check that out. But you don't need to have watched that one to watch this one because we're talking about a brand new country today. So I was meant to be visiting Norway last summer around June or July, I believe, and I was going to stay with my friend Louise. As I've said a million times, everyone's probably bored of this now, I was on BookTube for a few years previously, took a 3-year break, now I'm back. But back then Louise started a channel on the exact same day as me and we just became friends. And I've met her twice. I've been to Norway 2 times before. I was there once with another friend and we were interrailing and we were just in Oslo for like a day and I met her for the first time. She gave me a little tour of the city, and the second time was about 4 years ago now and I went and stayed with her. So I was going to be going and staying with her again, and we were just gonna have a really nice time and we were gonna go and see Taylor Swift because Taylor Swift was doing a concert in Oslo, and obviously very sad that not only I didn't get to see Louise, and secondly I didn't get to see Taylor Swift. So when I told Louise that I was doing this video where I read books from the countries that I was meant to be travelling to this year, I asked her if she could recommend a Norwegian book for me. So what I've been trying to do for the books in this series is read a book set in said country for at least a portion of the story, and also written by an author who is from that country as well. And Louise recommended The Orange Girl by Jostein Gaarder. She said that this is one of her favourite books and it's set in Oslo and the author is Norwegian as well. I really wanted to go with one of Louise's recommendations as she was who I was meant to be seeing when I was there, and also because she loves reading and I trust her opinion. This version that I'm reading is translated to English by James Anderson. I'm not sure if there are multiple translations of this. I believe they're all by the same guy. And Jostein Gaarder also wrote the book Sophie's World. I have heard of that one before. I think it's probably a bit more popular than this with a British audience at least, because it's one that I feel like I've seen in the shops quite a lot, whereas I'd never heard of this one before, so you might have heard of that one as well. This book tells the story of a father and son. So at the beginning of the book you meet a 15-year-old boy and you learn that when he was around 3.5 years old his dad died. The book begins with this letter being discovered that his father wrote to him as he knew he was dying. He says that there's a story that he's always wanted to tell him, but he wanted to wait until he was old enough to understand it for him to read it. So there's big sections of this letter, and then there'll be a section where the boy is interjecting into the story, either directly responding to some of the questions that his father has left for him or just giving extra bits of information. And the story that the father is telling his son is the story of the Orange Girl, who was a girl who he literally bumped into on a tram when she was carrying a large bag of oranges, caused them to spill everywhere. There was a bit of an embarrassing incident, and ever since that moment the father basically becomes a bit obsessed with this girl, trying to figure out how he can find her again, how he can come across her again, and it becomes sort of all-consuming, and it follows his story, the Orange Girl's story, it follows the son learning who the Orange Girl is, and we learn that at the same time that he does. It's a story of family and of identity and lots of other things. I'll talk more about it in the vlog that I'm going to include the clips for in a minute, but before I do that I wanted to talk a little bit about Norway, give a bit of a fact file, tell you some of the things that I would have been doing while in Oslo, hopefully, maybe, or some of the things that I've done there in the past, just because, as I said in my Slovakia video, I love travel and I really want these videos to be like a combination of reading, books and other things from the country as well. So also later in the video I'm going to be doing a bit of baking some Norwegian treats, but that's for later on. For now, let's get into a few Norwegian facts. So Norway is located here in Northern Europe. It's the westernmost of the Scandinavian countries and it borders Sweden. That's the longest border that it has, but it also borders Finland and Russia. Norway's capital city is Oslo, but other main cities in terms of population at least include Bergen, Trondheim and Stavanger. Its total population is around 5.4 million people, with around 83% of those people living in urban areas, and the capital city Oslo has the largest population with somewhere over 1 million people. There are two main national languages in Norway, the first one being Norwegian, the second one being Sami. The Sami are an indigenous group of people in the north of Norway, I believe in Finnmark and Troms in Norway, but they also live in some of the neighbouring countries as well. I think it's important to acknowledge here that this video is going to be Oslo centric because that's where I was going to be visiting, that's where the book that I'm reading takes place, and the author of this book wrote it in Norwegian originally, not Sami. I think it's important to acknowledge that because mainstream media has a tendency to either erase entirely or discriminate against indigenous groups of people. I know that I didn't know that the Sami existed for a very long time, and that's not okay. The Sami people have their own language, they have their own culture, which I would love to learn more about. I feel like I know a little bit about it, but not very much at all. I've actually added the book to my script this morning because I was looking up if I could find any Sami literature or anything to read in the future, and I found a book called The Archipelago of Hope, Wisdom and Resilience from the Edge of Climate Change. It's on script as an audiobook and I've saved it. I think it might be really interesting. I believe the author goes and talks to the Sami people and other indigenous people who live on like polar, I guess the word is, areas about climate change. That's something that I haven't really thought about before, but when you actually do sit and think about it, like obviously climate change is going to have a huge impact on people who call these areas that are melting home. That could be an entire video in itself, but I just wanted to include that bit of information here because I feel like it would be very ignorant of me not to. The Sami people also do have their own flag, but speaking specifically of Norway's flag, which I'm going to put on screen now, it includes the Scandinavian cross, which is common across other flags of the region. The flag was adopted in 1821 and was designed by a Danish MP called Frederick Meltzer. The Nordic cross that you can see represents Christianity, the white and the red represents Norway's union with Denmark, and the blue represents the union with, I said Finland here to begin with, but I meant Sweden. I've read sources that say the tricolour of the red, white and blue was influenced by the flags of France and other countries such as the US and the UK, countries that use these three colours and were deemed to represent independence and liberty. So moving on to some things that I would really like to see and do in Norway. As I've said, I've been there 2 times before. If you want to see a vlog from the last time I went there, I do have that still live on my channel. I will link it. It's a bit embarrassing, it's not my best work, it was a long time ago. I don't really like the way that I look in it. It shows the National Library, I remember that much, and I loved visiting there. So if you want a little snippet of a bookish day in Oslo, then you can go and check that out. But other things that I remember doing when I was in Oslo, I remember spending a lot of time down by the water. There's like a wharf area there that I believe is called Akerbrygga. There's lots of restaurants and cafes there. It was a really nice place to hang out, and you can get boat trips from there into Oslo Fjord. I did a fjord cruise when I was there the first time that I went. I really loved that experience. I love any form of boat trip, so that was a win for me. Also overlooking the fjord is Akershus Fortress, which I didn't go into, I don't believe, but we went up to that area to get like an aerial view across the fjord, which was really nice. There's also a park called Vigeland Park, which I remember was one of the things the first time I was there that Louise recommended me do, because there's like loads of statues of naked people in it, and that's how she described it to me. She was like, the park with the statues of the naked people. Other highlights include the Opera House, the Viking Museum if you're interested in that specific area of Norway's history. Something that I didn't see but I want to mention because it's mentioned in this book is the ski jump, which is called Holmenkollen. Yeah, it's a big ski jump. There's a skiing museum there, I think. Sounds pretty cool. And obviously, as I said, the one thing that I was going to be doing this time I went to Oslo was going to see Taylor Swift. Unfortunately, she's not there all the time, but hopefully next time I go there she will also be there as well, so that Louise and I can see her together. Aside from Oslo, the thing that I would love to do in Norway is just immerse myself in the nature. I think it's such a beautiful country. It's got all these fjords, it's got over 1,000 of them I believe, and they're all so beautiful. You can also experience the northern lights in Norway and also the midnight sun, which is basically 24/7 daylight. I actually have maybe some plans at some point to do a half marathon in Tromsø. Hello, it's Editing Karis here. I believe this is pronounced Tromsø, not Tromsø, which I understand is a horrible English way of pronouncing it. I really tried with the pronunciations of things in this video, but as always, please let me know in the comments if I've horribly butchered any of the things. Thank you. Which is a midnight sun half marathon. I feel like when I say midnight sun everyone's gonna think I'm talking about Twilight, but I am not. It's midnight sun half marathon. It starts at like 10 in the evening, you run until midnight. I think it will be really cool. The Svalbard archipelago is the place where they have the midnight sun for the longest period of time throughout the year. Also in Svalbard there's just so many opportunities for seeing nature, like there's seals. I want to go on a whale watching cruise. There's also opportunities for glacier walking, there's mountains. Just, it's such a beautiful country and I really need to see more of it because I love Oslo. It's one of my favourite cities that I've been to, but I feel like I've very much limited myself to only having seen that one tiny bit of this beautiful country. So that was my Norway highlights little spiel thing. I will just roll into the vlog footage now. I hope you enjoy seeing me reading this Norwegian book. So I've officially started reading The Orange Girl. I started reading it in the reading sprints that I was doing this morning on Shannon's channel with Anna and Aoife. I wasn't actually on it, I was just watching it. I've read 35 pages. I was finishing off something else before I picked it up. And then I read it in like the last 2 or 1.5 sprints. I kept getting so distracted because out of my window, I live opposite a park and I could see the park and it's currently snowing, and there was someone over there building a snowman that was literally bigger than a person, and I was just so distracted watching them do that. I'll put a little clip of the snowman now in. So I only got to page 35, but I can just tell that this is going to be so sad. My dog has now wandered into my room, so just take a momentary break from talking about the book for Bella to say hi to the camera. I haven't got very far yet, so I don't know how it's all going to relate and what the sort of moral of the story that his dad's telling him is, but I'm really enjoying it so far. For now, I think I'm gonna have a bit of a break from reading, and as when I was going to Oslo to stay with Louise, we were going to be going and seeing Taylor Swift, I thought that I would watch something Taylor Swift related. So I think I'm gonna watch the Miss Americana documentary on Netflix. I haven't actually watched it yet. I'm a fake fan, clearly. It's one of those things that's been on my watch later list for so long and I've just never got round to it, but I feel like now is the time. It's only about 1.5 hours, so I'm gonna do that. I'm gonna do my crocheting as well because I'm currently crocheting a jumper, and yeah, then it will give me the full being in Norway like I was meant to be in Norway this summer experience, except obviously actually seeing Taylor Swift in concert would be better than watching a documentary, but we will make do with what we've got, and then later I will read some more of this and update you on how I'm finding it.
My entire moral code as a kid and now is a need to be thought of as good.
Oh my gosh, my face looks so red. And my hair is still a bit wet because I just got out of the shower. But I thought I would just jump on the camera quickly to update on the fact that I watched the Miss Americana documentary. It was so good, so good. I would just highly recommend that everyone goes and watches it, whether you're a Taylor Swift fan or not, because I thought some of the discussions were just so powerful, and it was just a really interesting look at her life, her career, and how certain events have shaped her as a person. I think especially if you're interested in the general idea of the celebrity and media and the way that the media treats people who are celebrities, then I think you would really enjoy it. Since then I've been for a walk with my mum and my dog, just had a shower, and I was listening to Speak Now in the shower because basically I'm trying to re-listen to all of Taylor's discography, but I had to stop listening to Speak Now because I honestly thought I was gonna cry. I got so in my feels about being a teenager. Yeah, this is a little anecdote that is not really relevant to the Norwegian video, but as I was talking about Taylor Swift, I thought I would just throw that in here. But I'm gonna go and cook tea now because I promised my family that I would this evening, and then I will try, probably when I go to bed, to read probably until about the halfway point of the book. That's where I really want to get to. This point would actually be a vlog for me if I wasn't literally lying in my bed, because every single video I film, I swear that this is where I am. So I've read up to page 60 of The Orange Girl so far, and I just thought I'd film this little update. I'm just really loving this book so far. It's very character driven, there's not really that much plot. We're still following the story of the Orange Girl and trying to figure out how she relates to the story and what it is that the main character's father is trying to tell him. But I'm just really enjoying it. I'm really enjoying getting an insight into both of the characters, the father and the son. The dad is a really interesting character because his imagination just runs away with him on quite a few occasions. He's trying to come up with explanations for why this girl would need so many oranges, and some of the things he comes up with are quite bizarre, quite out there, but then he basically like convinces himself that this is who she is, and that's the way that he sees her in his head and how he thinks about her and what he relates to her when he's thinking about her over the course of the next couple of weeks after he first sees her. And I think that's quite interesting. I guess you could like look at that and think about how we make judgments on people, and how without knowing all of the facts about someone or knowing what someone's going through, I guess you think you know things about them, and sometimes what you convince yourself of is actually just stuff that you've made up in your head. I don't know if like it's meant to be that deep, but I think you could definitely take that message out of this if you read into it. I really like the tone of the book as well. It's a very like well crafted story, because I would say that with it being character driven, the pace is quite slow, but it's not boring. It's quite rich, the writing is, and it just is very calming. It's the perfect thing to read before going to bed actually, and it's the sort of story that I feel like I'm just losing myself to and I'm just falling into and just want to keep reading, which to me is the sign of a really good book. So it's the next day now, and I've just read up to page 100 of The Orange Girl, and I love this book. It's really different to what I expected. I think I was expecting a lot more plot. As I said yesterday, this is very character driven in my opinion, but I'm just really enjoying it. Like I'm reading it quite slowly, I think, compared to my normal reading speed, but I'm just really trying to savor it all. Just the way it's written, I'm finding it so poignant and evocative. And we've just found out who the Orange Girl is, at least I think we have, unless it's going to be another twist. I sort of expected a bit of the story around who she was, but that didn't really take away from it for me, because I was just satisfied to see how it was done and how it was revealed who she was. The way everything is crafted in this is just so thought through and so well done. And it was actually quite interesting because most of this has been taking place in Oslo, and I've actually spent a bit of time like today looking up some of the names that are mentioned in the book, because I have been to Oslo twice, but I can't remember really like the individual street names or the specific places. Now that I've looked them up and have seen them, I'm like, oh yeah, I remember that, and it's been a lot easier to like picture the story in my head. But the bit that I've just read, they've also been to Seville. That's quite funny because the next book that I'm reading in this little Around the World series is going to be a book from Spain, because I was meant to be going to Spain last year. So the fact that we went to Spain in this book just made me smile. And it's quite funny because I always say that I don't read romance. I don't like romance particularly, but this is proof that I do enjoy it if it's just a bit different from just a boy meets girl, they fall in love, that's all there is to the story sort of thing. Because this, while like romance is a key point and is central to the story, there's just so much more to it as well, like the themes of sort of life in general, life and death, because the father has passed away at this point when you're reading it, and family and just identity in general, I guess. I feel like there's a lot that you can take from this, and that's why I'm really enjoying it. But I think if you are a big fan of romance, then you might like this as well. just for the romance element in it in general. But yeah, I'm going to finish this later today. I've only got 50 pages left, so I think I can definitely do it across the course of the day. So unless something really dramatic happens, I probably won't check in until I've finished it. So I just finished reading The Orange Girl, and oh my gosh, I loved this book so much. I can't even put into words like the impact that it's had on me. I could honestly cry thinking about it. For such a short book, it packed so much in there, and it was told in such like a almost quiet, like understated way that just really has made me think, and like really had an impact on me, as you can tell. Oh my gosh. So the whole like end part of this book poses this quite profound like question about mortality, I guess, although it's not as bleak as that would sound. Quite a philosophical question, and yeah, it's just really got me thinking. Although a lot of things in the book about like the identity of the Orange Girl and the way that some of the characters came into play in the story, I predicted right from the beginning. Basically, that didn't ruin it for me at all, because I thought the story and just the way that it was told, just the way that it all came together, was just so beautifully crafted. I just want people to read this because I've not heard anyone talk about it before, other than obviously Louise, and it was just so good. I believe it's a film as well, so I would love to watch that, although I feel like some things only words can do justice for. Maybe I shouldn't say that before I've seen the film, because obviously some films are very beautifully done and very well done, but I just feel like this book was so much about words and the way that writing in particular can capture a feeling, capture a moment, a sense of time, that I don't know how that would translate to a film, but I would be interested to see. And yeah, I'm interested to read more of Gerda's books in the future. I don't know where the best place to start is, so I'll have to ask Louise, because obviously Sophie's World is like the really popular one, but I'm not sure if that's the best one. I've always been put off by that before, because it's sort of, I always thought it was like to do with physics and very philosophical, and I didn't think that that would be my sort of thing. I'm not really sciencey minded, but then there was like themes of space and philosophy and science in The Orange Girl as well, so if it was sort of dealt with in a similar way, then I think I would really enjoy it. I'm keeping a quotes journal this year where I write down quotes, obviously from books. Predominantly it's only been books so far that I've read, and I'm thinking of doing a video where I share them. I don't know whether that will be monthly or quarterly or what, but I just wanted to share a quote from this book here. I just really liked it. It's not a spoiler as such, but because this book is so like character driven as opposed to plot driven, it might like hint at the themes and sort of the ending, I guess, the moral of the book. So if you don't want to know anything, then I would skip ahead like 20 seconds or so to the next bit of this video, which would be me baking. But for those of you that, you know, want to have a little feel for the way that this book is written, I'm going to read you this quote, and it says, "I'm infuriated by the thought that one day I will vanish and become nothing. Not just for a week or two, not just for 400 or 400 years, but for all time. I feel like the victim of a con trick, because first someone says, help yourself, you've got an entire world to kick your heels in. Here's your dummy, here's your train set, here's the school you'll go to in the autumn. And then, next moment, there's laughter. Ha ha, we really had you there, and the whole world is wrenched away from you. I feel betrayed by everything. There's nothing to hold on to, nothing that can save me." When I read that, so good, this book. Honestly, thank you, Louise. Thank you, if you're watching this, for telling me to read this, because I don't think a book has made me feel this way in like a very long time. That was my thoughts on the book. I would love to know if you read it in the comments. And now I'm going to include my Norwegian baking segment, because I didn't know where else to put it in this video, because I actually filmed it like the day before I read the book, so it didn't like fit into the vlog anywhere. So if you want to see me literally having a meltdown, honestly, I was very chaotic while doing this baking, so if you want to see that, then watch the next clip. But if you don't, then I hope you've enjoyed hearing me talk about this book. So for the Norwegian cooking portion of this video, I decided to bake something today, because to be honest, I do prefer baking to cooking, and I found a recipe that I have most of the ingredients for already, so it just seems sensible. At the moment, obviously trying to limit the trips to the supermarket, so I wanted to use what I had to make something. So what I found were these things called boller, which are sort of like bread rolls, and I believe that they're traditional in Norway, and I think they come in different varieties. So the type that I'm going to be making today are called boller, or chocolate. The recipe that I'm using describes them as a classic Norwegian dessert that you can find literally everywhere, and they're going to be delicious, incredibly soft and amazing. So that sounds really nice. I'm not sure what they're going to be like. I'm picturing a brioche sort of texture because it's described as a dessert as opposed to like a bread roll. So I'm not entirely sure. I'm just going to follow the recipe and see what happens. Now, my issue is that the recipe does say that the key ingredient in this is cardamom, and that is the one thing, the single thing for this recipe that I did not have. But I have it on good authority that if you mix equal parts of cinnamon and nutmeg, ground obviously for both of them, then that will act as a substitute for cardamom. So we'll see. I can't really think of what cardamom actually tastes like, so I'm not gonna be able to know for sure, but if it tastes good, that's all I'm after. So to begin with, it says to mix the dry ingredients, flour, sugar, baking powder, cardamom and salt in a large mixing bowl. That seems pretty simple, so yeah, I will do that now. I love that I began this by saying that I love baking, and I've already messed up because I've done the dry ingredients, but I've just reread the recipe and it says that I need to melt the butter and gradually add the milk, and then when it's cooled, I'm meant to pour the milk mixture over the yeast. However, I already added the yeast into the dry ingredients mixture. Now, after the yeast is dissolved, you're meant to add all of that into the dry mixture anyway, so I'm hoping it's gonna be fine. It's gonna have to be because I've fully mixed it. It's not like I can pick it out or anything. You know, sometimes if you put something in on top and then you can sort of get most of it out, we're not at that position anymore. Honestly, I would love to be a really good baker and go on like Bake Off or something, but I don't have it in me, and I never read the recipes properly. This is the thing, like I'll read a little bit of it and then do something, and every single time I think you should have read the whole recipe before you started. I never know what a low heat is either. Like, oh, I've got it on 4, but maybe that's a medium heat. God only knows. Do you think I just keep doing this until the butter's melted? I've left my phone over there. Oh no. And I think it said to keep stirring constantly, so like, oh God. Wow. That talent. It's not like bubbling, but I guess I don't want it to bubble because I'm stirring it, and because, oh shit, and because it's meant to be on a low heat. I can't follow instructions and I don't know what I'm doing. Right, then it says to add a bit of sugar. I don't know how much a bit is because I put all of the sugar that was in the recipe in that mixture, so I've literally got this tiny little bit in a dish. And then it says to mix until that's dissolved and then remove from the heat. So that's what I'm gonna do. I'm gonna do it now because this looks melted. I'm gonna leave it to cool, and then I will add it to my mixture, which also contains the yeast that I was meant to add it to first. Okay, the liquid mixture is all cooled down, so I have to add it to the dry ingredients and then mix it until it's all combined. And then the bit that I'm really excited about, I put it on a bread hook for about 10 minutes, the recipe says, on a medium speed. And I'm excited about this because my stand mixer, which you're currently balanced on, so I will move, my stand mixer has a bread hook setting and I've never used it before, so I'm just excited to see what it's like, to be honest. This already smells so nice. I can smell the nutmeg definitely, and I know it's meant to be cardamom, but it just, oh, I can't wait to smell this when it's baking. So this is what the dough looks like after 10 minutes on the dough hook. I have to cover it with a towel and put it in a warm place for an hour until it doubles in size. On the Bake Off, they obviously have a proving drawer, but I do not have that, so I'm gonna put it in a cupboard. I've just got it out of the cupboard that it was in, and I can't tell if it's risen or not. It is a massive bowl, and I think that's what's confusing me, because I was expecting it to literally be like up to the top of the bowl, and it's still like really far down. So this is what it looks like now. I mean, it looks exactly the same. I can't tell. So I'm gonna add this chocolate and mix it slowly, and then I have to make it into the actual ball shapes, and then I let it rise for another 10 minutes, and then finally bake it. To add to the chaos of this cooking segment, this is when my family came in. I couldn't be bothered to stop recording, so here is me making it. Here's the finished product. It looks a bit burnt, but it was actually quite nice. This is me trying it for the first time very awkwardly. It was really nice, would recommend. And I'm back again. Surprise, I did not film an outro when I was doing the baking, so that's what this is. I just wanted to say thank you all so much for watching this video. I hope you're enjoying this series. I'm really enjoying making them, and I really can't wait to read my next book for this series, which is going to be a Spanish book. I'm going to be reading it in February, actually as a buddy read with Louise, who I've mentioned several times in this video, so I can't wait for that. Let me know in the comments if you have any book recommendations from your country. I would love to check them out. But other than that, that is it for today's video. Thank you all so much for watching. I hope you're all keeping safe and staying well, and I will see you again next time. Bye!